Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 282 of the Hammer Territory podcast, brought to you by Fox One. I am Scott Coleman, and I am joined on the show this weekend by the one and only Stephen Tolbert. Stephen, we are in the very middle of the MLB playoffs. Football is in full swing. Hockey is back. Basketball is almost back. October is maybe the best month of the sports calendar. How are you on this Sunday evening?
What's up, buddy? Yeah, it is. It's a busy time for a sports fan. It's weird to me that hockey is back because I know you live it out in Arizona. Here it's still like 85 degrees every day. Like having
Yeah.
hockey back when it's that warm out. Hockey should be like a December and after sport. But yeah, everything else is back. Obviously, football's in full swing. Mine and your team just played on Saturday. Colts just went to 5-1, which is crazy for you. Falcons play on Monday night. Not a lot to talk about for the Braves. We do have a couple of topics we're going to get into tonight about shortstop. Mark Bowman, MLB.com beat writer, released a couple of things. Alex talked about a couple of things. So there's some stuff to talk about. But yeah, we're kind of in the middle of everyone else doing stuff. MLB playoffs, NFL, college football. Our fearless leader, Brad Rowland, will be back sometime this week, I think. So, but yeah, it's good to be on with you, man.
Yes, as always, it is. So, the first topic on the show tonight is maybe not a full on report, but some interesting notes from Mark Bowman, who is the Braves beat reporter for MLB.com. And Bowman was talking about kind of the big picture questions for the Braves this winter. And in his very first paragraph, he noted, and I'm going to quote this, that Ha-Seong Kim is expected to decline his $16 million player option for the 2026 free season and become a free agent, which is what's expected to be a pretty thin free agent market for shortstops. Now, that being said, that's just Bowman's speculation. We have not officially heard anything. $16 million is a lot of money. As we have talked about on the show, there's also reasons for Kim to opt out and become a free agent because there's just not going to be a ton. So, Stephen, I guess my take on this, and then I'll throw it to you, is unless there's someone out there we are not thinking of at shortstop, the Braves really need to prioritize Ha-Seong Kim. That might mean you have to give him an extra year. That might mean you have to give him a few extra $1 million. But for me, unless there's just someone out there that the Braves know about that's available that we don't think is available, I have a hard time figuring out a better solution to the shortstop situation. Frankly, this shortstop problem the Braves have than adding Ha-Seong Kim on some kind of a contract.
Yeah. So obviously Bowman, I don't want to say reported. Reported makes it sound like I don't know if it was speculation. I don't know if he's just straight up reporting. He said is expected to decline his player option and become a free agent. You can parse that down word by word to what that means. I had a lot of people responding to me because I quote tweeted and just said that line was pretty much the most notable thing in the piece. And a lot of people responding like, well, not really. It's kind of expected. We all kind of expected this. I can't say that I fully just expected it to happen. Or as I sit here now, expect it to happen. I can see a world where it happens, and I can also see a world where it doesn't. Like you just said, $16 million is a lot of money. And the guy just came off a injury riddled, his production was down. Like there's a perfectly logical uh explanation for if he picks up that option and says, I'm gonna do one more year on this contract and try to, play my ass off and then hit the free agent market again. Doing that. Like that's that would be perfectly normal. So I don't agree with people who are like, yeah, it's just an expected thing to happen. I still want to see it. But if it does happen, if he does become a free agent, I don't know what the Braves are going to do because they're going to have to be the highest bidder on a premium free agent. And let's be honest, the Braves aren't typically the highest bidder on a premium free agent. That's not the space they live in, nor has it ever been the space they live in. They've spent their money on internal extensions. They've spent their money on, aging, more value-based deals like the Charlie Morton, the Chris Sale extension. They do not swim in the deep waters of like premium free agents and really never have. And this would be a premium free agent. Now, it's not going to be a $300 million free agent, but it's probably going to be, I don't know, 80 million, something like that, 100 million maybe if teams get crazy. There's nothing out there at shortstop. So like Ha-Seong, that's, the reason Ha-Seong Kim would decline his option is that there's nothing out there. There's no competition. There's teams that need shortstops. He's the best one by far. He might get paid a crap ton of money, but we'll see. I just, if he goes to free agency and the Braves aren't ready to win a bidding war, I legitimately don't know what they're going to do at that position because it's a black hole.
Yeah. So I will say, I would be shocked if he comes anywhere near $100 million. At the end of the day, he's about to turn 30 years old. He turns 30 years old this week. So happy early birthday, Ha-Seong Kim. But he's coming off a year where he was never healthy. He had the offseason shoulder surgery. He had an 82 WRC plus on the season. He had a 92 WRC plus with the Braves in that month of September once he came over. So I could be wrong, but I was going to throw out like a 4-year, $76 million contract. So that would be 4 years, $19 million a year for a starting shortstop in his early 30s. Like, to me, that feels not generous, but like I would be very surprised if if Ha-Seong Kim gets more than 4 years and, 20 million plus a season. I know there's not a ton out there at shortstop, but I mean, he's a solid shortstop. Don't get me wrong, but he's not that good. Like the Braves need him because the options are like absolute dust with Nick Allen and Vidal Brujan, and the shortstops in the system are really young. But I mean, I was going to throw out 4 years, $80 million as like my cap. Like, I want this guy, but if other teams are willing to go like 5 years and $100 million on Ha-Seong Kim, it would be frustrating, but I would have to back out. I don't know how you can give that a player of his caliber at 30 years old at a position that generally doesn't age very well. That would be tough for me to, it's not my money, but it'd be tough to sign that deal.
Yeah. And you might be right. That might be his cap. I just always have in my head, like, I watched Javi Baez get like $150 million in free agency when everybody in the world knew that was a terrible contract, that it wasn't going to age well. I watched Dansby get like 180 million. Turner got like 200, 300 million. Xander Bogaerts got 300 million. Like, the shortstops get paid a crap ton of money every year. And like, it's always more than I expected. And so like, yeah, I'm expecting like $70 million to get him, but if it's always more than I expect, then like if he signed for $100 million, it wouldn't stun me. Like, I wouldn't pay it, but it wouldn't stun me because he's a shortstop, and shortstops don't hit the market that often. But if he goes to free agency, and I do think it's more likely than not that he does, the Braves have got to be prepared to win a bidding war, and I just don't know that they're going to do that. And if it gets crazy, and listen, Scott Boras is his agent, and we know what Scott Boras does. He'll drag this thing through the middle of spring training if he has to. Like, Scott Boras has zero interest in a November signing, which is Alex's favorite thing in the world. How many times have we watched Alex Anthopoulos sign 5 people in November and then not do anything for 3 months? Like, that's not how Boras operates. He holds and holds and holds and holds and waits and waits and waits and waits and waits. And then he'll sign some crazy deal with 3 opt-outs and a player option and whatever in the middle of spring training. With Boras, I have no clue what to expect. So it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah. I think the dream scenario, if Bowman is correct, that Kim is going to opt out, and most players do opt out of player options. Like, salaries are only going up, and they're going to keep going up with the new collective bargaining agreement that's due in a couple of years ago. Like, and Kim is 30, so this is like his last chance to get paid.
Yeah.
Now, $16 million isn't nothing, and I'm sure the conversation of, well, we could take this $16 million, put it in our pocket, have a good 2026 season, and then hit the market and get another 4 years on top of that. Of course, the risk, though, is if Kim gets hurt again or isn't as good as what he's hoping, then he's kind of missed out on his chance. I'm fascinated to see how this plays out. And I think the perfect scenario is the Braves work out an extension before Kim gets to free agency. But that's, if it was any other agent, I would be much more confident in Alex's ability to, hey, let's hammer this out. You know what? We'll get you paid. You can go on a vacation with your wife, your friends, whoever you vacation with in the off season, and put a lot of money in the bank. but because it's Scott Boras, I think that's probably easier said than done.
Yeah, the agent matters. Again, Scott Boras has notoriously held on and held on and held on and held on, and he very rarely lets his guys sign extensions and wait until mid-February, beginning of March, and see how the market, and trust me, more teams will get involved, and that's just not how Alex operates at all. He tries to get all this stuff done early. Like the matchup of Alex Anthopoulos and Scott Boras, there's a reason the Braves don't sign a lot of Boras clients, and I think that has been overblown a little bit, but I think it's more because Alex likes to get his stuff done early and Boras likes to wait. And if this thing gets to free agency, the chances of Kim coming back to the Braves go down significantly, in my opinion.
And I'm curious. So last offseason, Ha-Seong Kim was a free agent and had no market. I mean, he got the 1+1 deal.
He had the pending, was it shoulder?
Yeah, he had a torn labrum.
Yeah, that's right.
So we, of course, don't know, but how much of, what does the market think of Ha-Seong Kim? And how much was that surgically repaired shoulder, which teams knew he was likely not going to be ready for opening day? If you're signing him to be your starting shortstop and you aren't going to have him for the first 2 months, that's tough. That's frankly why the Braves probably didn't sign Kim.
Right.
So I'm curious to know what, if you surveyed 30 baseball executives, what do they think of Ha-Seong Kim at age 30 coming off a down year? And there's no guarantee that he's going to be good. If the Braves work out an extension or a deal, we're going to be excited and happy, but this isn't like signing Francisco Lindor, who is, an absolute can't miss shortstop or somebody like that. I'm fascinated to see, and hopefully the Braves can figure this out, because if not, it's going to make for kind of a pins and needles offseason if the Braves are into the new year and haven't figured out shortstop. Everyone's kind of going to be looking around getting a little angsty.
Yeah. And because if it's not Kim, let's just play that hypothetical out for a second. If it's not Kim, let's just say we know for a fact right now Ha-Seong Kim will not be the shortstop. Who's it going to be?
Ooh.
I literally can't give you a single name that I think might be the short. I don't think it's going to be Nick Allen. I don't think they're going to do that again. No. One of the more interesting things Alex said in his exit interview press conference was they have reconsidered the idea of having, you can have 7 good hitters and a couple of guys who aren't good, because, he's always said, well, if those guys are doing their job, then it's okay to have a couple of black holes. And he said they have had to reconsider that because of how streaky a lot of their lineup is. It doesn't work. How often do the Braves have 7 guys going at once? It never happens.
Never. Well,
never.
Other than the entirety of the 2023 season, but beyond that, never.
Right. Or in September when, they were 50 games out of first place. So Alex said they've had to reconsider that option, or that idea, and the idea that that you can't just have guys on the team that can't hit at all. So I don't think it's going to be Nick Allen. I literally, if you put a gun to my head, I could not give you a name of the person I think might be shortstop if we know for a fact it's not going to be Kim. If
this player opts out, I think Trevor Story might be an option, because you could probably get him for a 1 or 2 year deal. You wouldn't have to commit. I don't know. That's just he is one of the few options. I don't think Bo Bichette is a serious option before people tweet us.
They care about defense too much.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, this guy voluntarily had Orlando Arcia and Nick Allen be his starting shortstop for the last 3 full years. So we will see. Very interesting days ahead. Again, just one man's opinion, just Mark Bowman's opinion, that he anticipates Ha-Seong Kim opting out, becoming a free agent. We will know more definitively within 5 days of the World Series ending. All right, Stephen, we are going to take a quick break. We actually are going to talk about the DH position on this roster, which has kind of flown under the radar a little bit in the early days of the offseason. But first, a quick word from our partners.
Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, or break out rookies to elite QBs, and unlock the upside that every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your player instincts. Download DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call, ride the upside in partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast, brought to you by Fox One. And Stephen, we teased it a minute ago, but you actually watched the hour-long media availability with Alex Anthopoulos from last weekend. And you pointed out to me that in the entirety of that hour-long media session, the DH position basically wasn't discussed, and the name Marcell Ozuna was never even said by anybody. I don't know if anybody necessarily expects Marcell Ozuna to be back with the Braves next year, but that's a notable vacancy. Like, Ozuna's been the Braves DH basically every day that he was eligible to be since the 2020 season. That's a big hole in the middle of the lineup. And I know Ozuna was not otherworldly this past season, but he did hit pretty well. And of course, the years before that, he was a really good hitter. So where are you kind of at with the DH? It is, of course, the most versatile and flexible position a team can have, because I mean, quite literally anybody could be a DH, but it was a good catch on your part that in an hour-long meeting, nobody was like, "Hey, Alex, what are you thinking with the DH? What are we doing here?"
Yeah, I mean, and in defense of everybody, the Braves do have a crap ton to do this winter. And obviously, Alex, the first 30 minutes of that press conference with Alex was all about the manager. So, and then they got to the rotation, and then they got to the bullpen, and then they got to shortstop, and then they got to the closer. Like, there's a lot to talk about. But I was watching, I was like, no one is talking about DH. And listen, the Braves have never had to go find a DH, ever. The DH was introduced in 2022 when the new CABA was signed, and Marcell Ozuna was already under contract. Remember, they signed him to that one-year deal in 2020. He hit like a maniac, was like third at MVP. They signed him to the 4-year deal at the end of that year for 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024 with the option for 2025. And then in the middle of that in 2022, the DH was in the National League was brought in by the new CBA. And so they just kind of shifted him to DH. And it actually worked out beautifully for the Braves because by that point he couldn't throw. He couldn't run. He couldn't throw. He wasn't a left fielder anymore. I mean, we don't talk about it a lot, but that was a godsend for the Braves that the DH was introduced when it was, because they had the guy for it. But the Braves have never had to get this position filled because they've just always had Marcell Ozuna. And this is the first offseason they're going to have to do it. And, you and I have talked about it. And Brad and Sean have like, we want an outfielder. We want somebody who can rotate with guys. But again, the Braves have so much to do this winter. They have to fortify starter. They have to get a closer. They have to fortify their bullpen. They've got to find a shortstop. Like, I want like a Cody Bellinger level hitter, but like it might be too far down the need list to expect somebody that good. And so if you're not going to do that, again, let's play another hypothetical. If you're not going to do, let's say they don't care about our idea. They don't want an outfielder. They're just going to go find somebody else for DH. Then what do you do? And, I don't think it's going to be Kyle Schwarber. I don't think it's going to be Pete Alonso. I don't think they're going to spend that type of money with all this other stuff to do. So I'll throw it to you. I'll ask you, what if it's not going to be an outfielder like we've said, what do you think they do?
If I was a betting man, and of course it's the second weekend of October, so this can change. We also have no idea how much money they are or not going to spend this winter. But all that aside, my guess is that they are going to run the catcher DH platoon tandem. It's not necessarily what I would do, but the fact is that unless they trade one of them, Sean Murphy still has 3 years left of control on his contract. They're not going to just bench Murphy. I know Murphy has his fans and his haters in the fan base, but he is a solid major league catcher. maybe not great. I think if we had truth serum and could ask Alex Anthopoulos live on the show, he would take back that trade and have Bill Contreras on this roster instead of Sean Murphy. But guess what, man? Like, general managers don't bat 1,000. That kind of drives me nuts when I see fans talking about that. Yeah, of course he wants to hit on every deal, but you're not going to. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. But we know how good Drake Baldwin is. You want Baldwin's bat in that lineup every single day. But with the heat of the Atlanta summers and just the physical demands of being a catcher, I don't think you can necessarily have Baldwin catch 150 games next season and expect him to continue to hit the way he did. I mean, even Cal Raleigh, who had like the greatest season of all time as a catcher, openly said down the stretch that he was kind of wearing down. And that's in Seattle. Like, that's a much milder climate than what Atlanta is during the summers. And of course, then you're not going to bench Sean Murphy, assuming you don't trade him. You're not going to just sit Murph on the bench 6 days out of the week when he has 3 years and $15 million a year left on his contract. So my guess as of today is that they will do the Murphy-Baldwin tandem, hopefully keeps him fresh. You could always rotate in somebody else. If you add a lesser outfielder, then you could still have Profar DH. You could have Acuna DH if you need to. It's not like sitting Murphy or Baldwin for a day or two is going to be the end of the world. But that is my guess because of the other more glaring holes they have on this roster.
Yeah. So obviously the hip tear that Murphy sustained, well, we don't know how long ago he sustained it. We found out about it in September. He said he's been dealing with it for years, which was wild. But he had the surgery. So, what his timetable is going to be, how good he looks is probably going to affect that conversation. If they did that, then you have to reserve. If you're going to use both catchers every day, then you have to reserve one of your bench spots for a third catcher, obviously. So you have to factor that into your roster building. It's one less bench spot because you do have to carry a third. You can't play both your catchers every single day and not have a third catcher somewhere. So that's one, if they're going to do that. Two, you and I have talked about, I think you and I specifically have talked about this before, about how a catcher at DH is just less valuable. It is. Yeah. Because they're just not the same level hitters. But again, if you've got other needs, I'll say this. I don't think the Braves, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. I don't think the Braves are going to go spend a bunch of money on an outfielder or a DH. I do think there's a world where they trade for somebody who maybe doesn't make a ton of money, who can play outfield, maybe even infield, like a Brandon Lau type of player who makes, I think he makes like $12 million a year, nothing crazy, but the trade market is always available. And I kind of forget that in my head. I always think like, well, they got to go sign somebody. They got to spend a bunch of money. They don't have to do that. They could go trade for somebody who makes no money. You could trade for a guy who's only the first couple of years of his career and makes league minimum and can still, rotate around different spots. I don't know. It's another position I don't have a good feel for at all. It's like shortstop. If you put a gun to my head right now and said, who's going to be the DH next year? I have zero clue. I have no feel for this whatsoever. I don't even know what position they're going to even try to target. Catcher makes sense just because it's inertia. It's already on the roster. You don't have to do anything. You can just go sign a random third catcher somewhere and call it a day. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because there's a ton of ways. There's a ton of different ways they could do it.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking as we talk. So let's say hypothetically they put all their money into a starting pitcher, a closer, another bullpen arm, and a shortstop. And we feel good about the roster, but they're just kind of out of money, whether they should be or not.
Yeah.
Well, with Sean Murphy coming back from this torn hip surgery, we don't know exactly what his timeline is going to be. And then just like any other catcher, Murphy could get hurt again, or God forbid, Drake Baldwin could get hurt again. If you go into the season with those two as your DHs and one of them get hurt, and the likelihood is one of them is probably going to get hurt over a 6-month season, if you don't add another bat, who is your DH? Eli White or, maybe Jake Fraley if they bring him back in ARB for like $4 million. Like that's not good enough. That you talk about holes in your lineup. Now, if it's a minor injury, if Baldwin's out for 3 weeks, the season's probably not going to be determined in those 3 weeks where, it's do or die, but there's even more risk built in with DHing your catcher tandem. And that feels like it could kind of blow up on the Braves, especially without knowing exactly what Sean Murphy is going to look like after a pretty serious surgery that he underwent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fair. It's a fair question. And that's why I wanted another outfielder, was because A, it lets you rest your catchers when they're not catching, so you actually get the benefit of the rest. B, it's another depth piece for your outfield who you've never been able to keep healthy.
Yeah.
C, it gets either Acuna, Profar, or brand new acquisition, off the field, especially Acuna and Profar. Like in that scenario you just laid out, I'm assuming if like Murphy got hurt, then Eli White would go to like left field and Profar would DH. I don't know. I have no clue what they would do. But then you got Eli White as your left fielder. And so, yeah, they probably do need to add a bat of some. You could probably argue for a guy like Jake Fraley. You could even platoon it with a righty lefty combo on your bench somewhere. Find a right-handed hitter that's kind of the inverse of Fraley. We'll see if they end up tendering Fraley a contract, but there's a lot. There's a lot of ways they could do it.
And then you start to run out of roster spots.
Yeah, you do.
Because as we just said, if you're carrying the catcher tandem thing, then you have to have a third. But even if it's Sandy Leon, you got to have a backup infielder. You got to probably have Eli White, Eli White had a fine season, but I don't think we want Eli White to have 400 plate appearances next season.
Correct.
And that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So again, it's very early. Technically the offseason is still 3 weeks away, but it was interesting when you noted that DH basically wasn't brought up, and it's kind of off to the side with good reason. I think they can address DH somehow. Anybody can be a DH, right? Like they're not trying to find a second baseman on top of everything else, or we don't anticipate them looking for a second baseman on top of everything else. But nonetheless, keep an eye on DH. There's some options here, whether it's internal options or if they go out there. I like your trade idea, especially if there's somebody who you could add and then have money to add a starter and a shortstop and some bullpen help, because those are, in my mind, higher up on the totem pole.
And I'll add this, or I'll finish with this. We'll move on. There was a valid report that the Braves were interested in Byron Buxton. Now he doesn't want to leave Minnesota. He made that very clear. He's going to veto any trade. So it's not going to be Buxton, but like
he says that, but if they sell off Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez, maybe to the Braves, if those guys get traded and he's looking around, now he has like a big family, like he may not want to move his kids. That's why you have no trade clauses, but he might come back on that at some point. We'll see.
But the whole point is the Braves already had 3 outfielders under contract when they were talking to the Twins about Byron Buxton. So like this idea of an outfielder, a 4th starting caliber outfielder, is not something they have not thought about. Like I know they've definitely thought it. Now again, Byron Buxton makes a lot of money. I think he makes like 15, 16 million. That's not a lot of money, actually. That's pretty good. But I could see them trading for somebody who you don't have to go out and pay a ton of money for, and kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I think it should be an outfielder. I've said that from the beginning. The Braves have not been able to keep Acuna, Profar, or Harris healthy at all. Go get another outfielder. But even if it's like a 3rd baseman, maybe to help with Riley, or 2nd baseman help with Ozzie, you can go a lot of ways. But I would not be surprised at all to trade.
Yes. So we will see what the next couple of weeks, couple of months hold. The Braves have, I guess, some different roadways they could take. And maybe Steven and I don't feel super confident where they're going to go with how they're going to improve this roster. But let's hope they spend some money. They have some prospects they could trade. Now, let's get this roster back to where we want it to be. And let's get some depth on this roster, because I feel like the last couple of years, the Braves' depth has just been non-existent.
Wait, so real quick, do you think it's going to be Ozuna?
No.
Yeah, I don't either.
I say no. I think if they got to like February and Ozuna was like, you know what, guys, I'll come back on a 1-year, $8 million deal, $6 million, $10 million. As long as the other spots on the roster have been addressed, I think I'd be cool with that, just to see if maybe he can bounce back. But I don't know. But then, you know what? I say that, but you talk to anyone around the Braves and they all rave about Ozuna in the clubhouse. The players love him. He's kind of like a big brother to a lot of the young guys on the team. Like Matt Olson has publicly credited him for fixing his swing a couple years ago. So I said no as my first reaction to that, but I'm talking myself off it a little bit. Where are you at with Ozuna?
I don't want it to happen. I think it's very possible that it could happen. I don't want somebody on the roster who can't play defense anywhere. We've talked about that before. I think it's too restrictive. So I have zero interest in Marcell Ozuna coming back at any price. That's my personal feeling. If you said, do you think it could happen? 100%. I think it could happen. I think the scenario you just laid out it's into the off season. He's got no offers. No one knows what to expect with the hip. He's got his own hip problems. The age, he didn't have a great season. He's put on some weight. He's got no market. The Braves would you come back for $5 million?
Yeah, with some incentives on there or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. I could see
30
that happen.
Will give you an extra $3 million, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or games played instead of homers. Yeah, something like that. I can 100% see that happening. I don't want it to happen, but I can see that.
We are in lockstep there. All right, Stephen, we are going to go to another quick break to hear a word from our partners. But after that, we're actually going to talk a little about the baseball playoffs. We have the ALCS and NLCS going on, and then the World Series is right around the corner. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Let's hit this week's Arena Club slab pack pull. We opened a Ruby. We went big.
We did.
$250 pack.
That was, what? The nerves got me. I think it was so exciting because the motion, it waits about 4 or 5 seconds for the card to come up. Card that I got was over $300, a prospect from the Mariners. And for me, I love the card. I thought it was great. And guess what? I sold it back.
Yep.
And now I got a little more money, and now I can go buy another one. You have to wait a couple minutes afterwards. And this is the excitement of the whole thing. Put your money where your mouth is and have fun with Arena Club.
You can see that big smile on Todd Father's face. Lazaro Montes, who's supposed to be good. He's Baseball America top 3. He's in the Mariners organization. But Todd Father sometimes thinks prospects are suspects.
Sometimes.
So he's going back to the well, and we'll see what he gets next time. Use the code FOUL, F-O-U-L, at arenaclub.com/foul if you want to get in on the first slab pack experience and get 20% off or 20% off your first card purchase.
All right, Stephen, we are going to wrap up the show with a little bit of baseball playoff talk. We had an all-timer on, was it Friday night, between the Tigers and the Mariners, 15 innings. I mean, it was, if somebody said the name Chris Burke on that broadcast, who, of course, hit the homer against the Braves, I think in the 18th inning for the Astros back in 2005.
Yeah.
It was late.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Very bad memory. Deep play. Sorry for the Chris Burke mention here on the pod. But the ALCS is set. It's actually going on this very moment as we record. By the time people listen, they will know one of those teams will be ahead. But, of course, it is the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners. And, boy alive, Stephen, if I put some serious cash on those two teams being in the ALCS 7 months ago, I'd be doing okay. But should be a fun series. Two teams that have, Seattle has never won it. Blue Jays back in the day were involved, but it's been a long time for both of those franchises and hopefully a fun series. As a baseball fan, I just hope for a good, fun, competitive series.
Yeah. It's new blood, right? These are two teams we haven't seen. Toronto is such a fun baseball town. There is Braves tied. Like Alex Anthopoulos was the GM back when they had their run with, Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion, and Troy Tulowitzki was on, Josh Donaldson was on those teams. Like, it was a fun team. And when we were watching the ALDS with the Yankees, those first 2 games in Toronto, it was just like, man, this place is an awesome baseball. Like, this place goes nuts for baseball. And the Blue Jays beat the crap out of the Yankees the Yankees finally got one game in Game 3, but the Blue Jays outscored them by like 30 runs in that series. So be a really fun series. That 15 inning game with the Tigers and the Mariners was some of the most fun I've had watching. Like, all of baseball Twitter was like watching that game together. Everybody was online. It was hysterical.
Yeah.
Like, no one could score. And people might not know this, or maybe not remember, there's no ghost runner in the postseason. You have to just score like you used to have to score, just create it all on your own. And these two teams they had base runners everywhere. I felt like I was watching a Braves game in the first half. Like, they had base runners everywhere, could not score a run. It was wild. Finally, the Mariners broke through. I'm really happy for Seattle. That's a town that has gone through some miserable times, especially in baseball. They lost their basketball team.
Did you see the clips of like lifelong Mariners fans like bawling their eyes out either at the stadium or in like their living rooms and I mean, probably what a lot of Braves fans were doing 4 years ago when they won the World Series, like just the pure euphoria of finally getting to the ALCS.
Yeah, and like, the Braves, we're pretty spoiled. Like we go to the playoffs all the time. Like the Mariners, they do not live that life. They live a lot of like they're a lower payroll team, a lot of 500 and below seasons. They finally put it all together. They got a really fun team, of course. Big Dumper, one of the greatest nicknames in the history of the sport. Yeah, I'm rooting for Seattle. I really want Seattle to win the whole thing, but it's going to be fun. And then obviously on the NL side, you've got the Brewers and the Dodgers. The Brewers went 6-0 versus the Dodgers this year, which I think I knew that, but I guess I had forgotten it. I saw that stat yesterday. They played 6 games. The Brewers won all 6. The Dodgers are going to be heavy favorites. I think I saw they're like minus 220 in the series, which is wild considering the Brewers went 6-0 against them in the regular season. That's how much freaking talent the Dodgers roster is. And somehow they got them all to the postseason like healthy. They weren't healthy for all season, but when they got to October, everyone's back. Like they got Ohtani pitching, they got Yamamoto pitching, they got Blake Snell pitching. They got all their pitchers back, and of course the lineup is just disgusting. So that'll be a fun series. It'd be the Brewers have home field advantage. They had the best record in baseball. I'm excited. I love playoff baseball. I wish the Braves were in it, but they're not, and I'm going to watch it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. The Brewers have become a player development machine.
It's insane.
Like I knew they were kind of doing it with a bunch of ragtag guys and all, from all over. And every offseason, it feels like the Brewers lose 1 or 2 really good free agents. Like they lost Willie Adames last offseason. Like how many teams lose franchise shortstops and just keep on going? And they've lost pitchers over the years. They've lost outfield. Like
Corbin Burns. They lost their ace.
That's right. Corbin Burns. I'm like, I knew they lost somebody else. Yeah. Like the beat goes on. They don't have a big payroll, but they are just a player development machine. I mean, if you asked 100 baseball fans who are not Dodger fans and are not Brewer fans, what percent are rooting for the Brewers in this series? Like 97%, 98%. I mean, it is David versus Goliath in that sense.
And that's the funny thing is that like, that's how everybody's going to see it. That's how the odds makers see it. Again, the Dodgers are massive favorites, but the Brewers went 6-0 against this team in the regular season. Now the regular season is different. It is a very different game. The pitching in this series is going to be nasty. The Brewers pitching staff.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I can't remember if it was you and I or you and Sean talking about like these teams have these random guys you've never heard of throwing 100 miles an hour. The Brewers are like the poster child for this.
Yeah.
Everybody they bring out of their bullpen those 99 miles an hour with the nastiest slider you've ever seen.
Every reliever. Somehow. I'm like, who is this guy?
It's crazy. Like I don't know that I can name another starting pitcher outside of Freddie Peralta off the Brewers team. Mizrachi, I know, but he's in the bullpen now. Like they've just got a army of pitchers that all throw just the nastiest stuff you've ever seen. And then they kind of piece it together with a lineup. Christian Yelich is the biggest name in that lineup, but he's not even like, Bill Contreras, of course, Braves fans know him, but it's like a 1 through 9 lineup. Like they don't have a ton of like superstars. They really are a player development monster. And so it's going to be fascinating to watch that series. The whole playoffs. I would love to see the Mariners win it all, but it's going to be fun either way.
So with all of America watching and tuning in live, Stephen, your official prediction, what is the World Series and who wins the World Series?
I mean, I think the Dodgers are going to win it because their Dodgers roster is just the nastiest roster I've ever seen. And somehow they're all healthy right now. I have zero interest in that. I want the Dodgers to get swept by the Brewers. I would love to see Mariners win it. My heart is saying Mariners. My head is saying Dodgers. I don't know how you beat this Dodgers team. Like Ohtani had a horrible NLDS. I had 1 hit. I think it was 1 for 22. Didn't matter. They still won. And like, what if he has a normal one? What if he has a normal, like Mookie and Freddie had very average NLDS and they still won. So I think the Dodgers are going to win. I know that's lame. I would love the Mariners to win it though.
Yeah. Anybody but the Dodgers is kind of where I'm at with it. I do think LA gets past the Brewers, unfortunately. And I don't know. I kind of think home field is going to matter for the Toronto-Seattle series. I'll say the Blue Jays are going to win a close one, but man, I mean that's going to be really fun baseball. And
Blue Jays would be fun. Like, I would love the Blue Jays to win. Blue Jays Dodgers would actually be a really fun. I mean, honestly, any combination of the four would be a really fun World Series. So.
And to be a fly on the wall in the Fox executive suite when it is the Brewers and the Mariners in the World Series, I think baseball fans would enjoy it. Like fans
100%.
who are going to watch, it could be any of the 30 teams, like you and I, people watching the show, listening, people who are going to tune in no matter what. But, you know, Joe in Middle America is probably not tuning in for a Seattle, well, maybe Milwaukee. I don't know. We'll see. But all right, Stephen, that's probably enough on this weekend edition of the Hammer Territory podcast. Again, a couple weeks out from the offseason. The Braves are also fully looking for a manager. I know we didn't really talk about it on the show, but who knows? Maybe as teams have gotten eliminated from the playoffs, that opens up the door for some candidates for the Braves. I'm sure that Alex Anthopoulos has talked to numerous people at this point.
Oh, I will say this one thing, because we did talk about this on the show. One thing he did say in his exit interview was, if you are interviewing somebody who is currently in the playoffs, the teams he talks to, they will always work with you to, like, on an off day, have that. So you don't have to wait until they're eliminated from the playoffs to, like, I was thinking, like, if the Braves wanted to talk to, somebody on Chicago or LA or whatever, they had to wait until they were eliminated. And Alex said, no, that's not the case. Teams work with you on the off days to let those guys do that in the middle of the playoffs. So just FYI.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of like a bench coach is obviously busy. I don't want to pretend like a bench coach is sitting around eating ice cream on the days off, but it's not like an offensive coordinator in an NFL game or something like that, where it might be a little harder to get a couple hours of time. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, on Wednesday, we could get an announcement and the Braves go fast, or it could be 2 or 3 weeks. And we're like, all right, boys, anytime now, who's the hire? We'll see how it plays out.
Yep.
All right, Stephen, this was a pleasure as always. Again, a big thank you to people for checking out the show, whether on YouTube or on audio, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back with a couple more shows this week. As always, if there's breaking news, we'll get an emergency show on. If there's no breaking news, I guarantee you we will find something to talk about with the Atlanta Braves. If you want to follow Stephen on Twitter/X, you can follow him at B_outliers. If for some reason you want to follow me, I am at Scott Coleman 55. Again, as always, a big shout out to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back with more shows this week, and we will see everybody next time.